There is one question hanging over Reacher Season 4 right now that could completely change the direction of the story. Who is the man standing in the background of Anna Merrick's photograph? At first glance, it looks like the kind of detail that could easily be dismissed. Reacher has already uncovered the photograph, and Congressman Sampson has given an explanation for the unidentified man. But if there is one thing we know about Reacher, it is that he does not accept convenient answers. And that is exactly why this photograph could be the most dangerous piece of evidence in the entire season. The image connects Samson, Cahill, and General Putra to an event in Indonesia roughly 25 years earlier, and standing behind them is another man, someone whose identity apparently matters enough for people to kill, kidnap, and manipulate others just to keep the photograph hidden. So the real question isn't simply, who is this man? The bigger question is, what did he witness? What did he help create? And why was Anna willing to risk everything to preserve this photograph? Episode 6 could finally start answering those questions. And I have several theories about who that mystery man could really be. Let's start with the strangest part of this entire mystery. After everything Anna was involved in, after all the people who have been attacked searching for the flash drive, the drive doesn't contain a massive classified document. It contains one photograph. That sounds almost ridiculous until you look at who is in it. Samson, Cahill, General Putra, and an unidentified fourth man. That immediately tells us something important. The photograph itself may not be valuable because of what is written on it. It may be valuable because of who can be identified in it. And that creates a fascinating possibility. What if Anna wasn't simply investigating an old event? What if she was trying to identify the fourth man because she discovered that his identity connects the past to something happening in the present? That would explain why the photograph became so dangerous. Anna may have discovered a person who was never supposed to be connected to Samson, Cahill, and Putra. And if that person is still alive and still powerful, then suddenly Anna's death makes a lot more sense. Samson's explanation is simple. He identifies the mystery man as a scientist who was working on malaria research in Indonesia. On paper, that sounds reasonable, but this is Reacher we're talking about. A convenient explanation is usually the beginning of the investigation, not the end. The problem is that Samson doesn't appear to provide Reacher with the kind of information that would actually verify the man's identity. No obvious name, no detailed explanation, no independent confirmation. Just, he was a scientist. And that raises a huge question. Why would Anna preserve a photograph of a politician standing with a scientist from 25 years ago, unless that scientist wasn't merely a scientist? One possibility is that he was involved in something much more sensitive happening in Indonesia. The photograph could have captured the people behind an operation that was officially presented as something completely different. And if Samson's political career is now built partly on his past military history, exposing what really happened back then could destroy everything he has built. This is why I don't think we should immediately accept the scientist's explanation. It may be technically true, but technically true doesn't necessarily mean complete. Here's another possibility. The mystery man wasn't an outsider. He was actually part of the operation involving Samson, Cahill, and Putra. Remember the significance of the photograph. These aren't four random people who happen to stand together. They're connected by a specific location and a specific period in history. So what if the fourth man was responsible for something that Samson and Cahill desperately don't want revealed? That could explain why the photograph survived for decades and why Anna became interested in it. Maybe Anna discovered an old government record that didn't match the official story. Maybe she found evidence that the Indonesia operation had a second objective. Or maybe the man in the photograph was the person who knew exactly what Samson and Cahill were doing. That would make him more than a witness. He would be a potential keeper of the secret. And if he's still alive, Reacher may not simply be looking for a photograph anymore. He could be looking for a living person who knows exactly what happened 25 years ago. Now let's talk about something Episode 6 appears to be moving toward. Reacher and Tamara are heading out in search of the mysterious Ahlquist, and I don't think that storyline should be treated as completely separate from Anna's photograph. The timing is too interesting. The photograph has introduced a mystery man. The investigation is expanding toward people connected to the old operation. And now Reacher is looking for another person who may have information. That suggests the show could be slowly building a chain of identities. Anna found something. Someone wanted it back. Reacher found the photograph. Sampson gave an explanation. And now Reacher is going after the people who might be able to prove whether that explanation is true. That is exactly how Reacher usually works. He doesn't need the entire conspiracy immediately. He finds one contradiction, then another, and eventually the contradictions become the truth. So Ahlquist could be the person who helps Reacher connect the photograph to the larger conspiracy. Here's my more dangerous theory. What if Samson and Cahill aren't the people who truly matter? What if the man in the background is actually the person who orchestrated everything? Think about how strange the photograph is. The important political and military figures are standing in front. The unidentified man is behind them. Visually, that almost feels deliberate. The obvious suspects are right there. But the person nobody recognizes could be the most important person in the image. If the series is playing with that idea, the photograph may have been designed to make us focus on Samson and Cahill while hiding the real threat in plain sight. And that would be a classic Reacher mystery. You think you've identified the center of the conspiracy. Then Reacher notices one tiny detail everyone else ignored, and suddenly, the entire case changes. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Lila's investigation into Samson has already complicated the story. She initially presents one version of events, then admits that she has been pursuing a different agenda. That means we shouldn't automatically assume that everything Lila knows is everything she has told Reacher, and if her investigation into Samson is connected to what happened in Indonesia, there is a possibility that she has information about the mystery man that Reacher doesn't have. Maybe she has already seen his name. Maybe someone gave her information about him. Or perhaps she is searching for the same person without even realizing that Reacher is following the same trail. That would create a fascinating collision. Reacher is investigating the photograph. Lila is investigating Samson. And both investigations could eventually lead to the same person. If that happens, Lila's storyline suddenly becomes much more important than it first appeared. There's another detail we shouldn't overlook. Anna wasn't portrayed as some random person who accidentally discovered a flash drive. She was already looking into information connected to government records. And the more we learn, the more it appears that she was uncovering something that other people desperately wanted to remain buried. That means Anna may have understood the significance of the photograph before Reacher ever saw it. She may have known exactly who the mystery man was. And if that's true, then the biggest question becomes, why didn't she simply reveal his identity? Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she didn't have enough evidence. Or maybe she knew that revealing the identity without protection would put her family in even greater danger. That could explain why the information was hidden instead of immediately released. Anna may have been preparing for the possibility that someone would come after her, and if she deliberately left the photograph behind as a breadcrumb, then Reacher may now be following the path she intended someone to follow. So what should we actually expect from episode 6? The biggest possibility is that Reacher gets another piece of the puzzle, rather than the entire answer. I don't think the series will immediately reveal everything about the mystery man. Instead, we could get something much more frustrating and much more interesting. A name, a location, an old document, a connection to Ahlquist, or perhaps someone who recognizes the photograph. Imagine Reacher showing the image to someone and getting a completely different reaction. Not, "That's a scientist," but, "Where did you get this?" That one reaction could tell Reacher everything he needs to know. Because when someone reacts with fear instead of recognition, you know you've found something important. And that's exactly the type of clue that could push the investigation into its next phase. But here's my favorite theory. What if we've been asking the wrong question? Maybe the mystery isn't, who is the man? Maybe the real mystery is, what is the man standing next to? Look carefully at the context of the photograph. Samson, Cahill, and Putra are already identifiable. The fourth man may simply be the clue that draws our attention to something else in the image. A location, an object, a document, a uniform, a symbol, something in the background that reveals what the operation was really about. If the writers want to deliver a major twist, they could reveal that the mystery man was never the ultimate secret. He was simply the doorway to it. And Reacher is exactly the type of character who would notice something everyone else overlooked. While Reacher investigates the larger conspiracy, Jacob and Plum are facing their own dangerous situation. And this matters because the investigation is no longer just about Reacher. People close to Anna are being pulled into the conflict. Jacob has already lost his sister, and now he is involved in something far beyond a normal investigation. That creates a vulnerability. If Reacher discovers something powerful enough to threaten the people behind Anna's death, they may not attack Reacher directly. They may attack the people around him, and that could put Jacob and Plum directly in the crosshairs. The more Reacher uncovers, the more dangerous it becomes for everyone connected to him. That's why Episode 6 could potentially split the story into two fronts: Reacher and Tamara hunting answers outside Philadelphia, while Jacob and Plum are forced to survive the consequences back home. After putting all these clues together, my strongest theory is this: the mystery man is probably not the mastermind himself. I think he is more likely to be a critical link between the old Indonesia operation and the present-day conspiracy. He could have been a scientist, intelligence asset, contractor, or specialist who witnessed something that was never supposed to become public. Sampson's explanation may therefore be technically accurate while still hiding the most important part. And that would explain why the photograph is so dangerous. The image doesn't prove a crime by itself. It proves a connection, and Reacher specializes in finding out what those connections mean. But there is one thing that keeps bothering me. Anna didn't preserve dozens of photographs. She preserved one, and that one photograph places Samson, Cahill, General Putra, and an unidentified man together in Indonesia. So ask yourself this: what if Anna wasn't trying to expose something Samson did 25 years ago? What if she was trying to prove that something from 25 years ago is still happening today? Because if that's the case, then the man in the photograph isn't simply a missing piece of an old mystery. He could be the person connecting the past to the conspiracy Reacher is fighting right now. And if Reacher discovers that the scientist's story is a lie, everything Samson has told him becomes questionable. That's when this investigation could become much bigger than Anna. So now I want to hear your theory. Who do you think the mystery man in Anna's photograph really is? An innocent scientist? A government operative? Someone connected to General Putra? Or the person secretly controlling the entire operation? Drop your theory in the comments. And if you think Reacher is about to uncover something much bigger than anyone expects, subscribe, because the next revelation could completely change how we understand Anna's death, Samson's past, and the real reason that photograph was worth killing for. Because sometimes, the most dangerous person in the picture isn't the one standing in the front. It is the one everyone forgot to identify.